All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at some seriously cool new research that might just flip the script on how powerful AI models get made. We're talking about shifting from just brute force spending to something a lot more, well, elegant, something like evolution.
So, this is the big question, isn't it? Right now, if you want to build a top of the line AI, it feels like you've got to be a tech giant with bottomless pockets. It's a game for billionaires. But what if there was another way in? A smarter and frankly much cheaper way to create something amazing?
And that really gets us to the heart of the problem in AI today. We are in the middle of a very, very expensive arms race.
See, if you want to build a new large language model, an LLM, from the ground up, you need two things in absolutely massive amounts: data and raw computing power. And that whole process is so incredibly expensive that really only a handful of the biggest companies can even afford to play. That puts a real limit on who gets to innovate.
So, to get around that massive cost, people came up with a pretty clever technique called model merging. But, and this is a big but, as this quote from the paper points out, it's always been more of an art than a science. Unpredictable. It's all about a person's intuition, some guesswork, and hoping for a little bit of luck.
So, let's dig into what this art form of model merging is all about and how it's on the verge of a major transformation.
The basic idea behind model merging is genius, really. It lets you skip the most expensive part of the whole process. Instead of building from scratch, you just take a few existing models that are already trained, maybe one is good at language, another is good at logic, and you combine their strengths. The goal is to create a new, more powerful model. In theory, it's brilliant. And this slide just perfectly captures the huge leap we're talking about. The old way, it was all gut feeling, trial and error, kind of like digital alchemy. But the new way that this research introduces, it turns the whole thing into a repeatable science. It's automated, it's guided by evolution, and it takes all that guesswork out of the equation. And this is where it gets really wild. This is the breakthrough. You find the perfect merging recipe, not by guessing, but by letting evolution do all the heavy lifting for you. So, the core concept here is basically applying Darwin's theory of natural selection to AI. You just generate a whole bunch of different ways to merge models, you test them all out, and then you let the fittest ones survive. The ones that perform the best get to breed and create a whole new generation of even better recipes. Okay, I know this diagram looks a bit complicated. It's pulled straight from the research, but the takeaway is actually pretty simple and really cool. This process goes way deeper than just mixing things together. It's not just merging the model's parameters, which you can think of as their ingredients. The evolutionary algorithm also figures out how to completely rewire the data flow, the cooking instructions, creating totally new ways for the final model to process information. So how does this whole AI evolution thing actually work? Well, it's this really elegant four-step loop. Step 1, you create a bunch of random recipes. Step 2, you test them all to see how well they do. Step 3, you pick the winners and you breed them, combining the best parts of their recipes. And then step 4, you just repeat that cycle over and over again until you've evolved a truly top-tier model. Okay, so that's all the theory, but, does it actually work in the real world? Well, the researchers put it to the ultimate test. They tried to create a very specific kind of AI genius. And the result was pretty stunning. They took a general Japanese language model and merged it with an English model that was a specialist in math. And what they got was a brand new model that was incredible at solving math problems in Japanese, a skill that really neither of its parents actually had. Now let's look at the actual data, because this is where things get really exciting. The original Japanese parent model, it scored less than 10% on the math test. The math-focused parent, it got 30%. But the new evolved model they created, an unbelievable 55.2%. It didn't just find a happy medium. It blew both of its parents out of the water. And here's the reason that high score is so important. As the researchers point out, the new model wasn't just an average of its parents. It developed what they call emergent capabilities. These are entirely new skills that just weren't there in the original models. It literally became more than the sum of its parts. And you can see these new skills in action right here. The evolved model could solve these really complex problems that needed both cultural context and logic. So on the left, it correctly answers a question about a Japanese festival, and on the right, it knows that a Japanese traffic light is considered blue, a cultural detail both its parents completely missed. This is genuine, new intelligence emerging. So, okay, let's zoom out and think about the big picture here. What does a discovery like this really mean for the future of AI? Well, the implications are pretty huge. For one, this makes creating really powerful, specialized AI way more accessible and efficient. You can customize models for specific jobs, languages, or cultures super quickly. But maybe the most important thing is that this could truly democratize the entire field. It empowers smaller teams, researchers, the underdogs, to actually compete and innovate without needing a billion-dollar supercomputer. At the end of the day, this is about changing the entire AI ecosystem. We could be moving away from a world where only a few companies can build these giant, one-size-fits-all models and into a future that's filled with a rich diversity of specialized AIs, all built faster and cheaper than ever before. And that kind of leaves us with one last, really mind-bending thought. For years, we've thought about AI as something we build, like a complex machine. But this research suggests a totally new way of thinking about it. AI is something we can evolve, more like a living thing. And if that's where we're headed, who knows what new forms of intelligence are waiting for us just over the horizon?